G'day guys, how you going? Hope you're having a fantastic evening. Now tonight I'm going to be doing the first video out of my series that I told you I was going to be doing. I'm going to be doing Around the World Horror. So basically this is featuring my foreign horror films, meaning films outside of the USA. So there are some subtitled films and there are some English films, such as films from Australia and the UK. So not all of them are subtitled, but the majority are. So if you're not into subtitled movies, a lot of these videos won't interest you, but there will be videos featuring English-speaking films. But for those of you who like subtitled horror films, then hopefully this proves interesting. They're not all horror. Some of them are thriller, but thriller and horror, they're close enough so I combine them all together. So the first episode, or the first video is going to be of my French horror collection. Now you all know that I'm a French horror maniac. I have a huge collection, so I want to get into it as soon as possible because I don't want to make this video too long. So I'll get straight into it. The first one is not so much a horror film, but it's a very, very disturbing, brutal film. This is Gaspar Noé's Irreversible, Argentinian release, so really, really cool to have in the collection. I've done a review of this. I've done a review of most of these films, so I won't go into detail about them, but if you want to find out more, then just go and look up my review of them. But yes, an absolute masterpiece, and this is a must for all extreme cinema fans. Next one is Gaspar Noé's equally brilliant, once again, I Stand Alone. Extreme, very different from Irreversible, but equally as disturbing. Definitely not for the faint of heart. Once again, I've done a review for this one, so if you want to find out more, go and check it out. Really good film. One of my favourite horror films of all time, and one of the worst sort of films that stayed with me for the longest, and this is Martyrs. This is a must-have for all French horror collectors. Now the first two films weren't so much horror, but this one is flat-out horror, and very, very brutal and very disturbing, very depressing. Must-have. Speaking of must-have films, another French horror classic, Inside. This is the film that really got me introduced to the extreme side of cinema. Absolutely love this film. One of the goriest, graphic, most bloodthirsty films you'll ever see. Love it. Got another really good French horror film, Frontiers. This is basically, it does have a lot of similarities with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A lot of people say this is a French version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I can see why they say that, but I think this has enough originality to stand on its own 2 feet. But definitely another very good French horror film. Very dark film. You're not going to leave this one feeling very good. Got a slasher film from Alexander Aja, and this is Switchblade Romance, aka High Tension. A throwback to the old classic sort of slasher films. Very, very gory. And a lot of people didn't like the twist at the end. Personally, I didn't mind the twist, but I can see how a lot of people didn't like it. But anyway, it's a matter of opinion, and you could love it, you could hate it, but overall the film was very good. It was very brutal. Very simple story, but made well with the suspense and the brutality. Now this one is a criminally underrated film. I love this film, and not enough people love it. And this one is the French zombie infection sort of genre film, Mutants. Very cruel sort of story. I'm not going to give it away. I've already done a review of this, so check it out if you haven't done so. But a very cruel sort of twist on the zombie infection sort of genre. But this is a very underrated film. I really, really like this one, and I highly recommend it. Another underrated film that I recommend is Vincent Cassel stars in it, and it's Satan. Very twisted, very disturbing film. Not gory. Well, there are a few gory scenes, but it's not your typical sort of French gore fest. But very disturbing. I'm not going to show the bat because there's some breasts on it. But a very disturbing, really good film. And a lot of people hate it, but, you know, each to their own. Personally, I really liked it. Now, this is a French-Canadian film. So it's not technically a French film, but it's spoken in French, so I'm going to put it in there, and that's 7 Days. This film is extreme. This is extremely depressing, and the violence, what the father puts the pedophile through was just really painful. And just a really depressing film. One of the most depressing films I've seen. It is extreme, and it's highly recommended. I love this film. We've got the really insane, fun French zombie film The Horde. Now this is a really poor cover. Hopscotch released this in Australia. This is an Australian release. I should have waited for the UK release. But this is a really poor sort of DVD cover. But the main thing is the film is really good. Just really, really plain. So that's disappointing, but the film's really good. So that's all that matters. Highly recommended. This is just a good old-fashioned shoot-'em-up sort of film. This is a Belgian horror film, so once again it's spoken in French, so I've put it in my collection. This is one of my favourite films of all time, The Ordeal, aka Calvaire. Very dark cover art, so I'm sorry if you can't see it. Really bizarre film. I love it. It's Calvaire. Highly recommended. Next up is a very, very suspenseful film, a throwback to sort of Alfred Hitchcock sort of stuff. Them. Now I think, I'm not entirely sure, so don't kill me for saying it, but I think there is a remake in the United States called The Strangers. I'm only guessing that because The Strangers had a lot of similarities with this one. But yeah, this is a very, very good film. No gore in it, but it's just good old-fashioned suspense. I haven't actually done a review of this yet, but I'll get around to it. But yeah, a really, really good film. This is a really good animated horror film, Fears of the Dark. This film basically just plays on our fears of the dark and paranoia that darkness brings. It's a collection of tales, and it's all in animation. And I was really impressed by this. It really surprised me. Now, one that I'm not impressed with, I thought this was really weak. It's pretty much the only French film I didn't like. Humaines. Had a really good sort of feel to it. Before I actually saw it, I mean the story on the back, and you know, to see the cavemen on the back there, I thought this could be a pretty good gore fest. Apparently, the guys who made Inside were connected to this, so I put it in, and the special effects were bad. The acting was bad, and it's just overall real disappointing. So I do not recommend this film. But being the French fanatic that I am, I just had to have it in the collection. But one that you could probably skip. Now this one I recently finished watching. This is a police sort of thriller. 36 Quai des Effres. I can't speak French, so I'll just tell you the English title. Department 36. Really, really good thriller. As I said, it's not a horror film, but it's really worth the look. And I'll do a review of this very soon. It's only a very recent sort of purchase, so I highly recommend this one. As I said, not a horror film, it's a thriller. Now this film actually grew on me. I didn't like it to start with, but after seeing it a few more times, it grew on me. I thought it had great cinematography, and it's really, really good suspense, particularly in the first sort of few scenes, and that is High Lane. Really bad DVD cover art, and it's a really bad release because there's no special features, there's no scene selection, it's pretty much just play movie. And you can have it in dubbed, or you can have it in the original French language. I recommend you have it in the original French language because the dubbed is just ridiculous. But as a movie, I actually like this film now. It was actually pretty good. Then we've got another French thriller, which really impressed me. Tell No One. Really good film. It was actually quite thrilling and suspenseful. Really good storyline to it as well. So I don't think I've done a review of this, or I may have. But if I haven't, I'll get around to it. Definitely a highly recommended thriller in France. Next one, Brotherhood of the Wolf. This isn't necessarily a straight-out horror film, but it has horror elements to it. It's a pretty martial arty sort of feel to it. Really interesting, a pretty twisted sort of storyline as well. So you know, that's what you expect from the French. That's Brotherhood of the Wolf. This one is Delicatessen, not necessarily a horror film, but a very morbid story. Really, really bizarre. I absolutely love this film. And another film by the same director, also a French film, but this is a romantic comedy, Amélie. Love this film as well. Not a horror or thriller, but I thought I'd throw it in there because it's from the same director. But Delicatessen, definitely recommended. And the last one on the list isn't, well, this one is actually in English. Sorry, I'm forgetting how to speak. This one is actually in English language, but it's a French sort of director, or a Belgian-French director, and that is Vignon. So I've decided just to add it in here. This is a really bizarre film, really good. So check it out. That's it for my first video of the series. Hopefully you enjoyed it. There are a lot more sort of French films coming in the mail for me, so you know, that's for now is my French collection. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.